Hello everyone, my name is Kamau Mahakoe. Welcome to this mini course on dysfunction in the family. Before I go any further, let me give you a brief introduction to myself. As I said, I'm Kamau Mahakoe. I am an educator. I live in Jamaica. I've been teaching for over 25 years. I started off as a homeschool teacher. I homeschooled my 4 biological children, and because of their success, it eventually morphed into a full-fledged day school where I accommodate other students as well. So I am the co-founder of the Kemet Maasai Academy in Portmore, Jamaica. It's a small private institution, still based on the homeschool principles that worked so very well for my own children. So I'm expanding it so that other students, other children can benefit and can excel in the way that my own children did. Because I have no issue with homeschooling, with traditional schooling, mainstream schooling as an institution. I decided to homeschool because I was not satisfied with the quality of the education given. But if we can get that system up to par with what we're accustomed to in the homeschool situation, then I'm all for that. So I'm extending my expertise to other students. So this video will focus on the family, dysfunction in the family, and we're going to talk about ways that we can identify dysfunction, ways that we can identify our own role in that dysfunction, and ways that we can find solutions to the dysfunction. So I'm going to start by just giving a few brief definitions of the key terms. When I refer to family, I'm speaking of the traditional family unit. I know there are many types of situations and interactions that we can refer to as family, but for the purposes of this course, we're going to think of the family as a traditional nuclear unit or extended unit, right? Parents, children, or in the extended sense, parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and so on. I grew up in a very extended family. The house that I grew up in, there were grandparents, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, my siblings, and anybody else that my grandmother would welcome, because she was of a kind heart and she took in whoever wanted space, she gave that space to them. Now, as kind as my grandma was and as loving as, the family members were for the most part, there was a lot of dysfunction in my family, growing up. And I would say I was the black sheep, the proverbial black sheep of the family. Right now, when we talk about the black sheep, we're usually referring to someone who is an outcast to some extent. This person usually has very radical views, liberal ways of lifestyle, in terms of religion or politics or sexual orientation or any lifestyle related choices. So they feel like the outlier and are often treated as the outliers, and in many cases feel alienated to the point where they just go on their own and they're not accepted, or they don't accept the family after a point. When we talk about dysfunction, pretty much we're saying it's not working right. Now there are many other definitions we could give, but dysfunction means something is not working as it should. Now the family should be a unit that encourages positive growth, encourages positive physical development of the children and the other members of the family, where you can feel safe, you feel wanted, you feel like this is a refuge from the outside world. This is a safe place you can go, a place where you belong. And when the family does not offer that, for whatever reasons, and we're going to look point by point at the many reasons and ways this can be expressed. Then we're talking about dysfunction. Now for me, I was a strange child. I was a very strange child. And you know, in addition to being just different in the way that I thought about things, in my refusal, because I refused, for example, to eat meat at around age 13 or 14, when everybody else in my family were devout meat eaters. I refused to eat meat, and it caused a lot of chaos in the family. I would come home to arguments, forcing me to eat until eventually they stopped. I did not abide by the religion that I grew up in, which was Christianity. It didn't make sense to me, and as a very small child, I resisted it. And I had an undiagnosed condition called TMAU, which I didn't understand, nobody else in the family understood, but it caused, it's a very offensive condition, and particularly if you don't know what it is or how to manage it, it can cause a lot of alienation because people shun you. And I think some members of my family just didn't know what was happening or how to deal with it. So that was a part of my alienation. So I'm going to talk to you also about how I dealt with that whole black sheep situation, to the point where now I have no resentment towards my family members, and hopefully they have none towards me. I get along with everybody, and still, you know, doing my thing in my way, and at the point where they have accepted my way of looking at things, or even if they don't agree, they accept that this is me and this is how it's going to be, and we can get along. So that should be the point where we're striving to be, where we accept that we are different, even though we have the same blood coursing through our veins. We're related in that way, but we are still different entities charting our own course, you know, and we still can manage to coexist and to respect each other. So I'm going to run down a list, by no means exhaustive list, although there are a number of points. One of the first things that indicate dysfunction in the family is abuse. Whether it be verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. So if you have been a victim of any of the above, or you know of it existing in the family, we can very readily say this is a kind of dysfunction in your family, and it is something that you will have to sort out. Whether it means that if someone is physically in danger, then you will have to intervene and see to it that the law protects these persons and the perpetrator is removed from the environment, or the victims are removed from the environment. If it's a case where the abuse took place a long time ago, but the family members are still at large within the family, they are sheltered, they are protected by certain family members, then some kind of confrontation needs to take place. It is not for anyone to say at this point, to tell you, go through litigation, even though that is your choice, that's an option. However, you should confront the person, I believe, and let them know how this abuse affected you. I remember a family member of mine, when she was going to be baptized, you know, she went back to certain members of the family and expressed to them, this is what your actions caused to happen to me, this is the effect, the emotional effect it had, and I would like us to resolve this. And it was very commendable, I think. I was a teenager at the time, and I observed this happening, and I thought to myself, this is very commendable for that family member to do. Now, growing up as youngsters, growing up, many times there are family members who would, even if they don't go all out and sexually abuse, but you might have cousins stopping over at a particular time and they would touch you up certain places. And as an adult, I remember I went back to a family member, and I was to several family members, and expressing what took place as children, or certain relatives or family friends who had access to the environs would abuse the situation and fondle us as little girls, and I'm almost certain boys may have been involved. Now, I remember when I wrote my autobiography and I was discussing the issue that I had, TMAU, I gave a copy of the autobiography to my mom, and she called me in tears. She was saying, why would you put this in a book? Why would you expose this about yourself? This is a very negative thing, and it's going to bring shame on the family. And she was in tears. And that affected me to the point where I removed that information from my autobiography. Years later, though, I wrote an entire book about TMAU. So sometimes we do things to appease relatives, just to keep the status quo, just so not to ruffle things, to rock the boat, as we say. However, that does not resolve anything. And if there's an issue that is bothering you, causing you depression, causing you other mental issues, and making you feel alienated and making you feel resentful towards any member of the family, you owe it to yourself to confront the person. You choose which way you want to confront. Maybe you want to write a letter. Maybe you want to go to the person directly. Maybe you want to bring someone with you, for moral support while you're confronting the person. Maybe you want to call the person on telephone, WhatsApp message, whatever it is. There are a number of ways in this day and age to communicate, but it is important to get that off your chest, right? So abuse is, I would say, the number one sign of dysfunction in the family. Sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. All right, now I'm going to go down some other pointers. If you feel like, and I want you to ask yourself and answer yes or no to these points as I go down. So are there family members who make you feel like you are obligated to lend them money, to lend them your clothes, to borrow the car, whatever it is? If there are family members who make you feel obligated to lend, or to lend your time, or to lend your services, that is a sign of dysfunction. And particularly, the grandmas are affected by this a lot, because many family members feel that they can take the kids and dump them on grandma because grandma has nothing else to do, and so she has to take care of them. Another point, the young adults who move out of the house and then they come back to raid the fridge, raid the cupboard, do their laundry, to do little things like that. This is something that, young adults should be taught that when you branch off, you must assume the responsibilities of running a household. You can't have it both ways. I'm not saying you can't help out your young adults as they move on, but it can't be a regular thing where they just feel like they are going to come back all the time for bailouts, for handouts, and so on. They have to learn to stand on their own, right? They have to learn to stand on their own. Another issue is sibling rivalry. So are you and your siblings at odds all the time, comparing who is more successful, who takes care of the parents more, who gives mom and dad more time and more money, and are unable to fly them out and give them the best gifts on Mother's Day or Father's Day? And it can extend to the children, your nieces and nephews. Do you compare them? Do you and your siblings compare? Whose child is the better child? Whose child is the more successful? This is a kind of dysfunction because family, we're all different. We have different ambitions, different paths, and we should not be throwing ourselves up against each other. Another issue that shows dysfunction in the family are feuds, internal feuds about material possession, particularly as it has to do with inherited possessions that are inherited, and where a will was not left to decide who gets what, or even while the parents are still alive, persons might be feuding who will get this, who will get that. That's a sign of dysfunction. When your relatives forbid you to interact with anybody else, whether within the family or outside of the family, that is a sign of dysfunction, because you as an adult should be able, and even children too, should be able to choose whom you want to interact with, who is your friend and who is not your friend. Don't allow yourself to inherit the family vendettas, the feuds with each other as well as persons outside of the family. You need to break the cycle of the family vendettas. Now, there are persons within the family who might have issues that they're dealing with. And these issues might be alcohol abuse, drug abuse, any kind of substance abuse. It could be mental issues as well. And if these individuals are allowed to exist in the family without getting adequate therapy, treatment for these issues, it will cause dysfunction, and it will cause dysfunction to get worse and worse and worse. So as family members, we have to look out for each other and identify when the members of the family need help. Maybe we're not the ones who can provide the help, but we need to source the help for them to enable them to resolve these issues that they have. Because if an alcoholic is allowed to continue and it perpetuates, or a drug addict, or anybody who, or someone who gets into issues with the law and does not resolve that tendency, it will eventually affect the members of the family. So you might think it's when they go out there, but no, it will trickle in, and you will see it in abuse, you will see it in theft of things from within the family. They will steal things to feed their habits. So it is definitely a family issue. And remember, the family puts individuals out into society, right? So we have to make sure that the individuals that we unleash on society are upstanding citizens, those who will participate in civic life and not take away from the society, not tear down the society. So the family's duty, one of the duties of the family, is to provide the citizens for the country. And if we're going to provide citizens that are not upstanding, not law-abiding, the entire nation will suffer. So that is a duty of the family, and it's a duty we have to take very seriously. Now, there might exist strata within the family in which members of the family look down on other members because they feel that they are poorer, not as well off materially, less educated, even of a different complexion. You might have certain family members feel that they are of a higher class, they are of a higher ethnicity, put it that way, particularly in the Caribbean where I live, we are products of a great mixture of different ethnicities, races, merging. And classism and colorism is very rampant. So within the same family, you might have persons who think I'm of a lighter skin than you, so this side of the family is better than the darker side of the family. Or this side of the family is better than those who are less, who only went to a certain school. Or this side of the family who live in town are better than the side of the family that live back in the rural areas, in the country. So we have to find a way, this is a symptom of dysfunction, we have to find a way to resolve those issues, the colorism, the classism, the racism within the family. So if in your family you have people who feel that they are better than you because of the color of the skin, the texture of their hair, the features, or if you feel you are better than a certain section of your family and you don't interact with them, you don't claim them, you don't own them, you don't want anybody to know about them because of the color of their skin or the texture of their hair or the features or the way they talk. If they talk like country bumpkins, you don't want to introduce them to anyone. You must embrace all members of your family and acknowledge the fact that we all had different upbringings. We all had the fortune or misfortune of being born at a particular place, exposed to particular education, and it's not necessarily our fault. We were born into it, and we should try to help each other, help lift each other up as a family, not to put each other down. Now, we need to look at the family traditions, some of which perpetuate dysfunction in the family. The way the family eats, the way the family interacts at social gatherings within the family. So for example, at reunions, at weddings, at birthday parties, at funerals. Is the family way of cooking, eating, detrimental to health? We really have to stop and look at it. Not because this is how grandma always cooked and great grandma had this recipe that all the neighbors wanted because it just tasted so delicious. But is that the reason why grandma and grandpa are no longer here? Or is that the reason why they died at 50 something, 60 something when they could have been here still at 100, 120? Is it the way that they cooked, that home-cooked grandma, home-cooked meal may have been the reason grandma is no longer here? And it may be the reason why certain things we're being told they run in the family, but I would put forward they run in the family dysfunction. Because the recipes are handed down, the ways of cooking are handed down, and so the illnesses are handed down. But it's not that it's in your genetic makeup, it's in the way you have been fed from birth all the way up. And so you are bound to get the same illnesses, and these are lifestyle illnesses. And these are inherited through family traditions. So we have to look at that. Some of them perpetuate dysfunction. Now, another symptom of dysfunction in the family is when things are forced upon the family members. You must become a doctor because we need a doctor in the family. We need a lawyer in the family. We don't have a lawyer, we need a lawyer in case of anything. We need a doctor in case of anything. You don't necessarily want to be a doctor or a lawyer. So what this causes is people who go into careers that they don't love and they are very unhappy and they take it out on their patients. If you go into medicine, if you go into nursing, if you go into teaching, if you go into any of the service industries in particular, without the love for that thing, you are going to be miserable for decades, and you're going to take it out on your patients or your patrons, your customers, and you're going to take it out on your family as well. You're going to resent mom for forcing you this way. You're going to resent dad for wanting you to carry on the family business when you don't have an interest in business. So that resentment is going to build up, and then, you know, this can lead to a lot of stress and a lot of anger and actual feuds between family members. So we really have to look and say, ask our children when they are becoming young adults, what is it that you like to do? Where's your passion? Where's your joy? What would you get up every single morning and do? You know? So I'm a teacher. Every morning I wake up, I look forward to seeing my students. I'm a writer. I look forward to writing. I love these things. So if I did 9 to 5 for I think 2 years of my life, I knew that was not me. And I would not be happy in a 9 to 5. I'm a free spirit. So we have different people in the family. Some of us are free spirits. They cannot pin us down to this chair in this cubicle for 8 hours a day. We're not going to thrive. We're not going to give our best. Or we're going to be unhealthy. Right? So these are the kind of things we have to examine, and don't take each other for granted. Now ask yourself this question: am I, or is there anyone in my family whom is always looked on for help, whether errands need to be run, you need to drop someone somewhere, you need to lend some money? Is there someone, or maybe that person is you, or maybe you do it to someone? This is the go-to person for everything. This person is going to feel pressured. This person is going to feel pressured. And it's not fair for this one person or a couple persons in the family to be shouldering the weight. This is dysfunction. You know, so we have to look and say, are we taking this person for granted? You know, we will run to this person for everything. Maybe we should hold back a little sometimes and try to solve our own problems. Try to find a different way out sometimes. Right? We have persons in the family like they are the ATM. They are the ATM. They are the designated driver for everything, every occasion, every situation. They are the one everybody runs to, and they are seen as the strong one, and maybe they are strong and they want to be there, but we take strong people for granted. The stronger ones in the family are often taken for granted. So we have to look and to see, whenever you identify the strong ones, the matriarch, the patriarch, the auntie who is always there, the uncle who is always there, make it a point of duty every now and again to call in and say, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need anything? Can I get you something? This is important because the strong ones, because we know they are strong, we don't bother to call, we don't bother to ask if they're okay, we don't bother to offer to help, and sometimes it's not their nature to ask for help, but they might need help. So we have to look out for the strong ones, right? Now, whenever we have family members, especially who are getting up in age, now we should do this all the time, you know, but particularly where we have elders and we know it is inevitable, they are going to leave us at some point. We have to put things in place. We have to put things in place financially and otherwise, to ensure that when they do leave, the family does not fall into chaos. Scrambling to get money, to bury grandpa and grandma, or even before they pass on, scrambling to get money for medicine, for health, for maybe they might need a wheelchair, an operation. We have to think in the long term and make sure that these things are in place for our beloved elders. Make sure they get their wills in order, because this is a major cause of chaos and dysfunction in the family when the matriarch or patriarch dies, or rich uncle or rich aunt or whomever, mom, dad, without making it very clear who is to get what, and then everybody swoops down and fight over the legacy. This can actually cause feuds and death and bad blood for decades. This will actually cause bloodshed. So we need to ensure that everything, the papers, the legal documents are in order before the passing of our elders, whom we know will pass, and even the younger adults. We all die, and old age doesn't have to be what's going to take us out. So once you find yourself with a certain amount of material possessions that you would like to leave to particular persons when you pass, get those in order to prevent chaos. Could be an accident take you out, right? So you don't want to have family members fighting over your legacy. Now, space is something that causes dysfunction. Physical, actual space within the house. Because we need space, we need physical space. Now, I grew up in a very close-knit sibling cousin thing. We had, for example, in the room where I slept, there were 3 beds. 3 beds in the one room, siblings, brother, sister, sleeping on the 3 beds, and we were fine. We were perfectly fine with that arrangement. That's how we grew up, right? We played together, we slept together, we did everything together. But the thing is, I grew up in the country. So outside of the sleeping arrangement, there was abundant space outside. The yard was big, we had the bushes, the trees. So the space wasn't an issue in that regard. But let's say the family lives in the city, where space is cramped, smaller housing. Sometimes you can't even walk around your house. How does the family resolve that need for space that can make you feel clustered and you just can't bloom, you can't blossom as you should? And then there's other space. So you might have mom and dad hovering over the children, and even as they grow into young adults, you might still have parents, we call them helicopter parents. They always need to have a say in the child's life, the young adult's life, which should not be the case. These are individuals going on their own path, needing the autonomy to make their own decisions. So we should have been grooming them to be able to make those decisions, right? So now when they are young adults, we need to let them fly. We need to let them fly, give them that space to grow and to blossom. We can't be hovering over them all the time. Yes, we still provide guidance, but give them the freedom. Now, there are a number of other points